Hello, every folks, and good morning. So, have you ever found yourself thinking, wow, I have a cool pointy stick. I sure wish it was through that guy's eye like a mile that way. Well, good for you. We have just the product you need today. Introducing the Archer. So this is going to be the One Vision Archer, essentially the long range shooting stuff through the eye at long range specialist. Long story short, they are as well one note as they've always been. However, this time that one note can be played on a lot of different instruments. So let's go ahead and get into it here. We're actually going to start off with the more basic part here, and that is going to be their skills. Surprisingly enough, their skill tree is very similar to how it was before, but this time around it may mean a few different things. So for example, Tremendous Shot does what it always does. It's just a little bit more expensive this time with that guaranteed crit. Their Double Shot allows them to fire twice. However, it costs 100 TP. Eagle Eye is going to give them True Flight and Sidestep, which actually gives them a kind of cool niche as a bit of a teacher unit for other ranged units here. You do get it by the time you get to about Chapter 2 or so, but this access to Sidestep and True Flight makes them a really good counter towards other ranged units, and if you are, for example, running soldiers with sidearms, or rogues, or something like that, or even necromancers that are looking to essentially try and hit stuff with their ranged weapons, but maybe we're having some issues due to low ranks or whatever else, this helps it helps them to help others in that situation. They're also going to be your first unit that gets access to Coax, and additionally, we've got the Reflect Damage and Magic abilities here. Really useful with the Reflect Shields to up that to 40%. They get access to the full complement of Tactician, with a max rank showing up at level 24. Additionally, if you have them running around with some higher mobility, for example, later on, if you get access to the scout gear and stuff like that, Opportunist could be a bit more useful for you. Typically, on an Archer, I find that they have plenty of slots to spare, so there's nothing wrong with having Opportunist on hand, just for having them escape away from enemy knights and things like that. So Opportunist gives you the use of Flank, which allows you to get the effect of Siege for one turn. So effectively you can use this to run away from a Rampart Aura, or to get into position. Potentially even get into position on top of a house. We'll get into how in a moment later. Additionally, they've got the full complement of Max TP. And we'll have half of Field Alchemy usage. They get access to Trajectory, which is going to give them... I mean, this one's obvious. Basically everyone gets this, but Trajectory gives them a pretty notable boost, essentially functioning... Oh, yeah, excuse me, I apologize. I don't know what's going on in my throat today. That is super annoying. Anyway, it'll give you access to the back attack ability from before, but it only costs you 10 TP and 10 recovery time. Just allows them to take a little bit longer to shoot a hell of a lot better. Very, very, very crucial during the early game where they can barely hit anything, and this allows them to fire through the rain, give or take. They've got Heron, which reduces their penalty for moving through water, and additionally they have Jump to help them jump on top of buildings, the usual selection of wards, as well as Parry, Deflect, Overpower, 1 rank of Counter Hit, 1 rank of Bash, and then the usual augments and such like that. We'll get into those in a second. They've got access to Golemy, Orology, Sacrology, Draconology, Teratology, which I believe are also all of the racial skills that are available on their weapons, minus Herpetology. And then additionally, we've got Art of War, Daggers, Sidearms, Bows, Crossbows. So this is their usual kind of arrangement of items. However, they also get access to thrown weapons this time around, and additionally Art of War, which allows them to use buffs. So this is going to be one of their main features that you're going to be paying attention to, which is the fact that the old ninja abilities from PSP or the auto abilities from Reborn are something that they can put onto their bow right from the get-go. So for example, things like Bridle will allow them to put a silence on their bow, Escalade allows them to climb any distance, Water Step allows them to walk on water, and Benumb allows them to inflict stun. Now, by itself, this would already be pretty good. And if you're familiar with PSP archers, you might be thinking like, wow, that is insanely overpowered. And if you've played Reborn, and for example, we're not one of the folks that figured out how archers actually work, you might be thinking, wow, I can actually use them for something. And if you did figure out how they, they could be used, then you might be thinking, wow, this actually sounds really overpowered. Well, I'm glad to say that it's somewhere in the middle. So unlike, unlike how Reborn did it, unlike how PSP did it, the way that they handled it in One Vision is that effectively they actually are the almost total opposite of both of those versions. So for those unfamiliar, in PSP, they scaled way harder than they were intended to. In Reborn, they do scale incredibly hard, but they're far more subject to the armor system. So, like, again, in PSP's case, they just kind of accidentally found a Balder bow, and they have accidentally converted it automatically into a rocket launcher. In the case of Reborn, if they hit on an element or a breached or feared target, they would end up accomplishing the same effect, but against everything else, they would basically plank off. They were going for the old, plate mail versus arrow kind of thing, where just in the right circumstances, they absolutely shred. In other circumstances, they just bounced off. It's very hard to model that out in any game whatsoever for a hell of a lot of reasons that I would hope would be obvious, but good God, based on the comments, there's a hell of a lot of logical sense missing. Anyway, so in the case of One Vision, effectively what they did is that they increased their penetrative value in terms of their shots, but they don't scale as hard except for specific situations. So, like, for example, Legion Span here would hit exceptionally hard versus human targets if they managed to get past defenses. But comparatively speaking, like, let's say we compare the Legion span here with something else in the 30 range. So here, if we can get up to something in the 30 range, I mean, comparing it with a dagger doesn't feel very appropriate, but comparing it with the the Shemhazai is a terrible comparison here. If we compare it to the Satan Kober, effectively the daggers are already known for basically bouncing off of armor. So in their case, they would do a bit less penetration than the dagger, but would scale a tiny bit more, but would also get access to those racial bonuses. But when it comes to their weapon selection is top-notch. Because like everything else, when it came to One Vision, their weapons got expanded. So they have their classic of having their short bows and their long bows, right? You've got your typical 3 to 7 range, can fire beyond range, basically bounces off of any defenses they run into, but they're one-handed. And then you've got your longbows, which are going to penetrate a bit better, 3 to 8 range, can fire beyond range, but they're a little bit slow to fire. And then we get access to the Siege Bow, which is going to be 50% longer to fire, give or take. 4 to 10 range, cannot fire beyond range, but does have increased vertical tolerance, way better penetration, hell of a lot of extra weight. These were modeled after, I kid you not, the Dragon Slayer bows from Dark Souls. Effectively, they are just a friggin' tank cannon of a weapon that you can go stick on your archers, and additionally, you can use those guaranteed crit abilities and stuff like that to absolutely snipe stuff. But this essentially means that they can accomplish a effect that feels very similar to the kind of a Reborn penetration effect through a lot of their racial abilities off these bows here. If they achieve enough augments in that particular weapon, they can also feel very similar. But it manages to kind of hit that sweet spot between all of the different versions in terms of their balance there. But this is just the bows. Bear in mind, we also have crossbows, all of which are one-handed at this point. They will also have a different selection of different racial abilities on these as well as the usual selection of wards and things. You've got poisonous bows. You've got bows that assist with casting. Not very useful in the hands of the archer here. Yeah, go figure. That's a hard word to remember. But it is going to potentially be useful in the case of something like a Yama here with its Supernova spell in there. You've basically got a few different tools available to them. But again, that's just the crossbows, which are really good with shields and such, and additionally, this will also depend. That poison was already pretty likely to happen, but you can guarantee that poison now. If you, for example, were ever having an issue where something was just way too big of a threat early on and you couldn't quite get within any reasonable range of it without getting bodied, then you have access to the entire line of railbows. So the crossbow side grades become a weapon that can fire only towards the magnetic poles of the Earth, which is just so oddly specific, I love it. But basically what it translates to is it fires directly in a straight line. It barely has any vertical tolerance, but it can fire through a lot of terrain things. And basically is just a wall hack crossbow, give or take. But again, it has to fire in a straight line with next to no vertical tolerance. It's a very tricky weapon to use, and they hit extremely hard. Yeah, it's probably one of my favorite gimmick weapons in One Vision. But yeah, the thing just hits like an absolute truck. But again, 1 to 12 range. So yeah, very effective sniper weapon there. Additionally, if you wanted to have them throw items, you have that there, and that's before even getting into the sidearms here. So they get access to all of the sidearms with all of their different abilities, whether they're stun, poison, silence, slow, fright, charm, or the ability to heal. If you wanted to have them carry around essentially an infinite pocket heal, you have the Kieran blowgun that's available pretty early. You've got a stop and petrification blowgun there as well. And bear in mind, again, they have their tremendous shot still, so they get to guarantee all of these abilities as well. This is effectively, this is especially nuts with things like the Nymph and Mora blowgun with their Fright and Charm effects. Very, very handy. Additionally, you've got stuff like the Captain America shield, which will stun on hit and will give you Steadfast, which they can't get normally. You have stuff like like if you want to inflict a False Flight on something, like an enemy archer or something that potentially might have come in very defensively built or something, you can get False Flight off of your slingshot here. And then you've got your usual standard sidearms here with their hobble and slow effects for hitting quite a decent chunk harder, including stuff like the Vulcanheim, which you can guarantee the slow effect on, being able to absolutely annihilate people once you get there. Yes, this is basically the God of War axe, give or take. Like there is stuff. There's stuff and stuff and stuff and stuff and stuff. And on top of this, bear in mind that they have set effects still. So, for example, if you ever liked the Stinky set from either of the other versions, they actually get a kind of improved version of it this time, where instead of being locked out of some of its pieces, they actually can use the Legion span as a way to remain stealthy while firing. Actually, the main gauche was just here because it just kind of looks cool, I guess. But if, for example, you wanted them to be invisible and get into perfect condition to evil eye an entire team, if you wanted to instead make up for the one weakness of a build like this and give them ridiculously high resistance through something like a ward shield, you have that option. Or if you wanted to, for example, get the old Jiggler set effect and you wanted that on any damn weapon that you pleased, you could, for example, go over here, go equip your sniper set, get your sniper ghillie, get your sniper gloves wherever they're at, get your sniper medal, and now your agility is basically insane. And any one of those previous weapons that you were looking at that you were thinking like, man, I want to do the Dragon Slayer combo from TOR. You don't even need the Dragon Slayer. You get your sniper set, you get your Tundra Storm, there you go, job done, they're kicking ass. If you wanted to, for example, have an anti-people type of option, you've got plenty of those, but Shenya's Gaze will definitely do the job for you. Again, you don't need to do any additional weirdness, and if you decided to get close to a Terranite, they would no longer be able to hit you with Fear because it has a Fear ward on there. If you wanted to do this same nonsense with something like the Vulcanheim, yeah, that's going to absolutely kick something's ass. The Archer is very direct in what it does. It does one job, and it does it exceptionally well. And again, you might have noticed earlier those buffs that we were talking about did include things like being able to ignore terrain. So, for example, if you wanted to go put on your scout gear, especially your scout vest, which is already going to be really good in their hands on account of just the insanely high avoidance. So let's go ahead and give them some even higher avoidance. Actually, let's just go for the pre-stinky set, going for the scout vest, some alluring high boots. There are no weapons, I believe, that trigger the scout set at this or the sniper set at this point. So we'll just go ahead and say. We'll go ahead and say cat earrings on top of all of this. Yeah, their avoidance is already almost at 260 here. If we wanted to, for example, go with a poisonous crossbow, just for reasons, let's go ahead and go for the shams, go for the shields over here. Let's say we go ahead and give them even more avoidance there at almost 300 avoidance at this point. And additionally, have swift foot for some additional movement range. And on top of this, they can ignore terrain they can essentially use Escalade right from the get-go to be able to go ignore terrain. These are all a TP cost of 5, so you will be able to turn them on immediately upon starting the fight in most situations, unless they get the very, 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 very unlucky first turn or what have you. So now you have a near unhittable, like, toxic archer that can guarantee the poison on their fairly long-range crossbow here, who can ignore terrain, is functionally untouchable even by stuff like Draconics. So, either way, archers, they maybe technically only have one job, but man, oh man, they do that job exceptionally well. So, hopefully that helped to help highlight some of the things that these guys are good at. The one thing that I will say, as far as the sniper set, it basically replaces the worm scale stuff. I could be missing something, but they don't get access to enough worm scale items to actually make stuff happen there. Like, for example, the Spark Guard boots, while they are mentioned as being a worm scale item, I didn't see Dragon Slayer showing up on the Spark Guard boots, so it is possible that that just got changed. I believe that is exclusive to the worm scale greaves at this point, not the Spark Guard shoes anymore. So just one of those changes. So they don't really need Dragon Slayer, but they can't really technically use it, I don't think. Yes, they can use the shield, interestingly enough. They just don't seem to be able to use the set effect because, again, the shoes don't seem to have that effect. I thought the Sentinel's rib got access to, or was counted as part of the set, but it doesn't appear so. So, anyways, kind of a minor who cares kind of note, but just kind of interesting. Or if you wanted to, for example, do something hilarious of, hitting insane numbers and inflicting fear on something, or, kill plus charm, you've got something like this here as well. So that's kind of about that. Thankfully, the Archer is one of these classes that, quite frankly, is absolutely spoiled for choice when it comes to their slots. So more likely than not, you can equip all of their action abilities and your weapon abilities and whatever usual logistical stuff that you like, while not really having to worry about not having enough slots for anything. So not really a whole lot to discuss in terms of building them. It's really more so just picking the right equipment that you want to use in their case. So that's about that. Y'all have yourselves a good one. Again, don't forget, if you are in the in the later sections of the game and you're worried about them getting knocked off cliffs, it is a very unique thing in their case that the Chimeria's Fist, they can actually go for a double shield build, and it is insanely good in their hands. That they have Steadfast, they have that ridiculously high avoidance, they can inflict stun as well as still keep some pretty solid damage going. It's fun. It's fun is what I'm getting at here. So either way, they can make that work. That isn't something that's going to work on a lot of stuff, but in their case, they can really really make that work, and it covers one of the weaknesses of the class, which is that lack of Steadfast. Anyway, y'all have yourselves a good one. Take care. Thanks for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one. Let me know what y'all want to see next, by the way. I was kind of thinking to do it from just like order of unlocks, give or take. So next one would probably be something along the lines of the night or what have you. But yeah, let me know. All right, take care.